fucking yes me, 'cause we stay all late, and I'm wide awake, I'm not coming home tonight, so the next time, when I'm on the line, I'll read you this note, I'm not coming home tonight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pass Interference Podcast. I am your host, as always, Max Whirling. How's everybody doing tonight, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this fine podcast on the multitude of platforms we are on? We are on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Podbean is our home, also Google Podcasts, CastBox, like legitimately everywhere you could find a podcast, we are there. So go hit 5 stars, go leave us a review, go leave us a question, go do stuff. Go do stuff. I don't care where you do it. Let me know if you want to follow me on the Twitter, and you'll get all that information later. Please send me a message to my Twitter. Say, yo, I left you a review. Why didn't you comment on it? And I can go, oh, okay, and make me do a better job. But this is a fun episode we're going to have. It's going to be very news heavy. We're going to talk about some news stories that have happened, some breaking news stories as well that's happened today. We may talk a little about the AAF and the expectations going forward to that, because it was a fun debut weekend. But the first thing we have to do, as always, is introduce the co-host of this lovely, lovely podcast, which we have to my imaginary right. It is the bearded one, the Johnniest of the Neckriches, Johan. John Neckridge, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, man. It's the dawn of a new era, and we'll touch on that later. So pretty stoked about that. And yeah, everyone give our podcast some love. Give us a like on Facebook. I think we only have like 70 likes. And
I think we still have 69 likes, which
nice. I'm sure everyone's doing that intentionally, but you know what? The joke's over. Let's get it up to 100 and more. Come on. Give it some love. It takes 5 seconds to hit that like button.
Hell yeah. And, of course, to my imaginary left, it is the Wizard of Football, the picks champion of the regular season, the chefiest of all the chefs. It is Bronson Pompilio. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to talk about some news, some speculations about the future, and we'll see where it goes.
All right. Well, the first news we're going to talk about, John, it's not going to be later. It's going to be now. It's right out of the gate. It was breaking news today. It's the most pressing news. The Joe Flacco is elite era is over in Baltimore. He will now take his talents to the Denver Broncos, where I believe he's had his most famous play ever. The Mile High Miracle or whatever?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. He will take it to the Denver Broncos. Broncos trading a 4th round pick, which is the same pick they were acquired for the Demaryius Thomas trade, number 23 in that round. Trade's not official until the new league year begins on March 13th, but it is going to happen. What that means for both teams is this. Ravens, they absorbed $16 million in dead money. However, they gained $10 million in cap. And, of course, they move on to the Lamar Jackson era as well. The Denver Broncos, on the other hand, they acquire a quarterback who some still say has some gas in the tank. Some say that, he can still lead a team to the playoffs. And some say he's past his prime. And this is a big gamble for the Broncos in the sense of monetary. They were going to save some money by not signing some guys and reworking some stuff. But, of course, now they have 2 high-profile quarterbacks on the roster with some big contracts. Vic Fangio gets a quarterback he's kind of familiar with because he did spend the season in Baltimore. And, of course, Gary Kubiak is there as the offensive assistant. / senior advisor to the offense. He was the offensive coordinator during that Super Bowl run. So it is a interesting trade, but a trade nonetheless that needed to happen. Bronson, I will start with you because I know John will have some ideas on everything. We won't worry about the Ravens yet. We'll let John worry about the Ravens. What does this mean for the Broncos?
I mean, it seems as if they got the guy that we thought they'd be getting since we knew that they'd trade him. We pegged him either going there or the Jags. I don't think Vic was there, though, when he was in Baltimore. I think that was well before Flacco was ever drafted. Yeah. But I'm sure he knows some people in that building, has some sort of relationship with the owners there to where he could get some sort of information, maybe even out of John Harbaugh over there. I like it. He'll definitely be able to throw that freaking ball in that altitude. That's for damn sure. And he's already shown that with his greatest play of all time in his career. It just seems like I think my concerning thing right now is just like him going to like just John Elway. Like seems like he's just going from one vet to the other. Like he's like given up on the idea of drafting a quarterback now. It's not really, I guess he like figured it's not his specialty after Paxton Lynch. So I guess that's kind of concerning that they're not really trying to make an effort there. I guess you could argue that they still could, or maybe he's just biding his time until next year. But it'll be curious to see. I mean, this is like your typical defensive-minded guy coming into an organization, becoming the head coach, and the first thing they do is get their vet quarterback. So this could be the beginning of maybe what we saw in Chicago the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting hire. He was actually on staff from 2006 through 2009, so he was there for the rookie season and the sophomore season of Joe Flacco. So there is familiarity with Vic and Joe Flacco there. As for the draft and everything, I still think that they target a quarterback, and I still think they target Drew Lock, but this gives them an incentive of saying, hey, we fucked up with Casey Keenum. We have in our eyes, a better quarterback in Joe Flacco that can come in here for at least a year while we get Drew Lock, because that's who we picked in the mock draft, and that's who I think they're going to target. Is, hey, we're going to pick Drew Lock up and have him sit behind Flacco for at least a year, if not 2 years, depending on playoff status, stuff like that. That way, they can make sure that he is ready to go. Because I think Paxton Lynch, while he I don't know what was the issue with him. It was weird because he looked good in college, but I think it was one of those smoke and mirrors type things. He was a Memphis quarterback, didn't play against the top competition out there, but he had all the intangibles you liked. You liked the fact that he had a big arm, you liked the fact that he was athletic and mobile, stuff like that, but he never showed it while he was at Denver. Also, I think we can agree, along with left-handed quarterbacks who are about 6'7", 6'8", they tend to actually not do so well in the NFL. And we've seen that with Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch now, even Dan McGuire back in the day for the Seattle Seahawks. Go back to Mike Glennon. Just tall quarterbacks, anything like 6'7", 6'8", it hasn't worked out. It's like, go play basketball. You're better off playing basketball.
And oddly enough, they got Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I know. But Joe Flacco is what? Joe Flacco is what, 6'6",
I believe.
Yeah, 6'6"
or 6'7".
Yeah, he's 6'6", so he's on that weird cusp. But I mean, it's not so bad. I think he'll be fine there. John, this is a big change in the era of Baltimore. This is officially, they've said, all right, we're done. Let's wipe our hands clean of Flacco. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the Super Bowl. Go do stuff in Denver. You surprised about the move at all?
No. I mean, one way or another, he was going to be gone from the team, whether it was a trade or he was going to get cut, worst case. And I mean, Ravens fans and almost everyone saw this coming, especially last year's draft when they picked Lamar Jackson in the first round, and Flacco texted Harbaugh right away, or it was the other way around, and Harbaugh said, "You're still a starter," but Flacco said, "Yeah, but I started my rookie season." And I mean, it was from there on out, we all knew this day was coming. Real quick, I will give a quick shout out to Flacco. I mean, he's definitely the best quarterback that's played in Baltimore. There's no doubt about that. He did a lot for the team. And the one thing that still pisses me off is I see people talk about the Super Bowl run, and everyone says, "Oh, well, he only won with the defense," and I'm like, no. Ray Lewis was playing when he shouldn't have been playing, when he tore his triceps. The defense ranked in the bottom half of the league that season, and Flacco went on one of the most impressive postseason runs, and give credit a lot of that to Anquan Bolden as well. But after that, it just wasn't the same. I mean, he signed a big deal. I wasn't a fan of that because they lost a lot of their help, especially Bolden, and that showed immediately. And in 2014, that could have been the other year, and that was when Gary Kubiak was the offensive coordinator, and it went ballistic. I mean, the offense hadn't looked that good really ever, and they should have beaten the Patriots in the divisional round, and who knows what would have happened after that. But I think he hasn't really been the same, honestly, since in 2015, the year after, when he tore his ACL. And he was a lot slower. He wasn't trying to run around and make these bigger plays or take the big risks. And then he started having his hip problems. And, my biggest concern, I'm happy for him. I hope he flourishes over there in Denver. It's a very tough division right now, as we saw last year with, the Chargers and the Chiefs, being the two hottest teams in the AFC. So he has to contend with that. But, I'm happy for him. He gets another shot. My biggest concern is the offensive line. Keenum was running around a lot and getting sacked a lot last year. And, Flacco is one of the slowest guys under center. So, I mean, hopefully they can protect him. Hopefully they can fix that issue. The only other thing I wanted to point out going along with his struggles is one tweet kind of stood out to me. And ever since 2013, when he signed the big deal, this is among 36 quarterbacks, minimum of 1,000 attempts. Passing yards per attempt, 6.5, ranks 35th. Touchdown percentage, 3.5, that ranks 35th. Touchdown to interception ratio, 110 to 80, that's 34th. And passer rating, 82.3, and that's 34th. And, I mean, yes, if they can make it to the playoffs, he's almost like a completely different person. But they have a lot to contend with in the regular season in that division. I mean, it's not going to be easy for him. But, like I said, I'm happy for him. He's the only Raven I've ever gotten a jersey signed by. And, I hope he does well. But, I mean, there are a lot of question marks. And I thank John Elway for the 4th-round pick.
Yeah, this is the look at his statistics. He's the all-time career passing yards leader in Baltimore history, most touchdowns, most wins, most completions, so on and so forth. He's basically the Ravens' best all-time leader in every category. What's interesting? Go ahead.
Sorry, I think he's got 10 wins in the playoffs, which ranks in like the top 3, I think, amongst at least current quarterbacks.
I am not sure entirely about that, but I'm just looking at the Wikipedia article. But statistically, his first 2 trips to the postseason, not that great. 1 touchdown compared to 6 interceptions. But since the 2010 season, the 4 postseason trips he's had since then, where he started, he's had a combined total of 24 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions, which is lights out. That's really good statistics, and that's something you need in the postseason. You need good quarterback play. But yeah, I mean, John, you think fair value for the trade, 4th round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting anything higher than a fifth. So, I mean, I'll take a fourth. I know Bronson and I were talking earlier, hey, maybe Emmanuel's in there. That would have been awesome. But, I mean, I'll take a fourth. That's usually when the Ravens pick their best players in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, and he's got some good targets there. That's something that's going to be different to what he had in Baltimore. So he's going to have, obviously, Emmanuel Sanders for right now, unless something changes. But he's also going to have Cortland Sutton. He's also going to have, if he can get healthy, Jake Butt, who is, he's been injured and he's been having some issues. But if he can get healthy and right, this is a guy who was a fifth round pick. He should have been a first round pick, but he tore his ACL in his senior season. So,
not to mention Philip Lindsay over there catching passes.
Exactly,
Oh,
Philip
yeah.
Lindsay.
So,
not something
Flacco
he's
was
used to.
jumping off to his running backs.
Yeah, exactly. So, Flacco obviously is going over to a team. Now, I'll ask you too, Bronson. Are you surprised that the Ravens made a interconference trade? Are you surprised they didn't try to shop him off to the NFC rather than the AFC?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, that shit happens all the time, and it seems like regardless if they go to a different conference or not, it's like they always get that rematch. It's like the schedule always favors wherever that player goes, that you'll play them in a year or two. Like, do the Broncos play the Ravens this year?
I don't think so, actually.
Let me see here. Baltimore Ravens.
We played the division last year, so unless if it's one of those random matchups they create.
Placements.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah,
here.
which it wouldn't be. So yeah, no. Yeah, if you already played the AFC West, so
Yep.
no. So you
Yeah,
don't
you
even
don't-
have to worry about them.
Yeah, unless you guys make the playoffs, obviously. And the only reason I say that is because, let's say, for example, because we know Cleveland's going to be good next year. Cincinnati's going to be terrible, but Cleveland should be good next year. They should be taking the next step. Pittsburgh, until they're dethroned, is still the champion. So you're going to have some tough ways there. So I feel like it's going to be a dogfight for a wild card spot. And same thing with Denver. I think they're going to have issues in terms of competing with the Chargers and competing with the Chiefs. And
Yeah, it's gonna be 8-8 situations.
yeah, so that's the only reason my concern is in terms of trading into interconference, because now you're giving a potential rival team, let's say they finish a weird 9-7, let's say the Chargers take a step back, or even the Chiefs take a step back for whatever reason. Now all of a sudden the Denver Broncos move into 9-7, the Ravens are 8-8, and they miss the playoffs because Flacco led them to the playoffs. That's my only concern. But other than that, I think the value is fantastic for what they got. 4th round pick. Even with the dead money cap situation, they didn't trade him for like a 7th, or they didn't trade him for a 6th. They trade him for a 4th, where you can still get a good value. And we've talked about the depth in this class. The depth in this class is going to be ridiculous. So I think good trade all around. What's this mean, guys, for Casey Keenum, who wants to, or Case Keenum, I should say. I always call him Casey, but Case Keenum. What does that mean for him?
He'll probably be a pre-June 1st cut, man.
Let's see.
Yeah.
What would be the, and you guys keep talking about it. I'm going to look up the over
I think
the
it's
cap.
10 mil. I think it's 10 mil.
All right.
And dead cap.
Ugh.
Yeah, I think so. I was reading about it earlier.
Let's see here. Yeah, they would save. Yeah, they would get $10 million cut, in dead money, but they would save $11 million. So it's almost like a wash in a sense. So they're bringing on about $7.5 million more for a quarterback, but do you think anybody trades for Case Keenum, or do you think he's just going to get cut?
I don't think someone will trade for him unless like someone gets hurt, maybe. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's a better deal if he gets cut.
I mean, you argue. I mean, really, the difference between Case and Joe Flacco is minimal. I feel like the production difference is like Joe has a bigger arm. Case has more mobility and accuracy. So like it's like
You trade one for the other, essentially.
right. Yeah, so you just like swapping vets, like I said earlier, a different style vet. Maybe someone Vic felt more comfortable. Like maybe they bring in a rookie this year, and then it starts to look like a Mike Glennon Trubisky thing. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not that you couldn't pull off a trade for Case, just because, like for example, like let's say their number one guy in the draft is taken before them for whatever reason by the Giants, or someone trades up, maybe by the Broncos. Like if you're the Jags, like, do you make a move for Case? Give a 4th round pick, give the Broncos back their 4th round pick that they just gave up? Like you pretty much gave yourself your own trade market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, hey, all right, yeah, just give us back the pick that we gave to the Ravens and we're Gucci. And then, then you do what you got to do with Bortles, restructure or get Case to agree to a restructure or something. I don't know. I mean, any number of teams I think could make a play at him.
Yeah.
If the Giants want to like move on from Eli fully and like go a year with like a vet quarterback that's not Eli, just so they can get that monkey off their back, then they go that route. I mean, there's any number, like I said, there's any number of teams. And then, teams may value him as a fucking solid backup option. I mean, the Vikings did, and look how that turned out for him, So, it's very possible. Hell,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the 49ers. So
yeah.
there's teams out there that should definitely consider it.
Yeah, I think Case Keenum still has some value. I still think that the contract he got, like, I'm happy he got paid, but in my opinion, Case Keenum is a spot starter in the sense of he's going to be the guy who is, if your regular starter goes down and you need a guy for a couple weeks, he's your guy. And that's what I think Case Keenum is, honestly. And I've always loved him. I loved him. I remember vividly having a discussion with one of my friends, Frank, who, he went to Texas Tech, Big 12 kind of guy, where Case Keenum was, I don't think Houston, I can't remember if they're in the Big 12 or if they're in the Conference USA. Either way, I remember watching Case Keenum, who is the all-time passing leader in terms of yardage in the NCAA history. And I remember watching him and I said, I think this guy is a future starter. And he says, no, he's a system quarterback. He won't make it in the pros. I said, I still see him as a starter. And fucking, it took forever, but I got proven right that they end up being a starter in the league, and obviously led Minnesota to a miracle run in the 2017-18 season. But yeah, I still think he is a spot starter in the sense of he's got, good mobility. He's got adequate arm strength, not the biggest arm, not the weakest arm, but, he's got enough to put a little muster on the ball. And, he's got short accuracy up the ass. He can throw to those backs and intermediate routes and stuff like that. You just have to worry about him going long.
Right. I mean, could you see the Redskins trading for him if he agrees to a restructure prior to?
If he agrees to a restructure, I could see it, and I wouldn't.
I think if anyone trades for him, that's going to be the underlying thing that has to be agreed upon.
Yeah.
Just like when Jarvis signed with the Browns,
Mm-hmm.
They were like, all right, you can trade for me, but I need a contract, and it has to happen. So like there's things like that get put into like the verbiage of, of the deal. Like, all right, we're only taking this deal, and it only goes through if he agrees to this term.
Now, Case Keenum is only guaranteed $7 million of his money for 2019. So they're saying on Pro Football Rumors that he'll either have to take a massive pay cut to serve as Flacco's backup, or he'll be released outright if he's not traded. I think he will get cut just because of the less guarantees. I don't think anybody's, unless there's a restructure like what you were saying, I don't think anybody will take on that contract. But yeah, I could definitely see him on the Redskins. I could see him in Jacksonville. He would be a perfect fit because he would provide Jacksonville with I feel like a better Bortles. Even though Bortles has the bigger arm, he can't throw outside the numbers, whereas Case Keenum definitely can. He's proved that.
Yeah, hell, I could even see him in Miami.
I could see him in Miami as a 1-year stopgap until they get to 2020. So yeah, there's teams out there that'll take Case Keenum. So I have no issues there. So yeah, we move on from that big trade, and now I've divided these segments into some awesome waivers. So we had the breaking news first. Now we'll talk some NFL draft news, which the biggest story coming out of the NFL draft is that Kyler Murray has officially decided to pursue a career in the NFL. He said, fuck you, Oakland, take back your money. I'm going to be a quarterback instead, which was the expected outcome once there was rumors that he was going to be heading into the draft and heading after he won the Heisman and everything. Everybody was like, oh, he's going to be a first round pick. Ever since those rumors started, that was the expected outcome. Now it's officially official in a sense. We had him going in our mock draft, number 28 overall, to the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, that can change just based on trades and just based on how quarterbacks are going off the board entirely.
Fucking hype.
Yeah, here's the thing with Kyler Murray that scares me is now he's officially committed to the NFL draft, right? He's now officially committed to it, but he's committed so late in the process. The combine's in less than a month. And this is a guy who we've talked about who, even though I like his arm and I can get over the height fact, I can. But this is a guy who's listed at 195. I would be shocked if he weighed more than 180 when the combine actually comes around. I would be actually shocked if he weighs more than 180, 185. So this is a guy who needs to put on some more weight. And he's got, like I said, less than a month to prove everything. He's going to throw out the combine. He's going to do all the drills at the combine. So, and he's got less than a month to prepare. And he's not even hiring like a quarterback guru. His dad, who I guess is a high school quarterback coach, is going to be his quarterback coach. John, I'll start with you. What do you take about all this in terms of him spurning the MLB and heading into the NFL, and what do you think about everything with the time frame he's got?
Well, hopefully they could just put this whole thing to rest, because I feel like this is just blown up way too much. And I mean, it's good for him. I mean, he has an excellent choice in front of him, to be, a top 10 drafted MLB player or go to the NFL. And, not many people can really say that. I mean, yeah, you have dual athletes like, Russell Wilson. I mean, he'll do spring training with the Yankees or whatever. But, this is a guy that could have a big career in baseball, or he's going to be a first-round draft pick unless something, miraculous happens. But, I just thought the media could put it to rest, because it just seems like it's been such a huge distraction. And I do agree. I think he definitely needs to put on some weight, because, I mean, and looking at him, too, I mean, I'd be shocked if he, weighed more than 180 as well. And, I mean, that's just – it's tiny. I mean, I'm almost that size. But, I mean, I'm happy for him. Hopefully he can put on some more weight. And, like I said, my biggest concern is just the whole media thing, because this is all anyone's talking about, it seems like, with him lately.
Yeah, Bronson, what are your thoughts on the whole everything?
I definitely don't think it's going to take much for him to put on weight. I'm sure he'll probably come in somewhere, probably probably high 190s, I think, when it's all said and done. His height obviously is a concern. He'd be the shortest starting quarterback in the NFL. yada yada yada. The talent's there with the arm ability. He's proven already all throughout college he can throw over tall linemen. Granted, the linemen in the NFL are typically bigger a little bit, but he still can do it. I mean, it's not like the difference is so drastic. I'm sure it's just be a thing or two that he has to work on. I guess the way I look at this whole situation is that this is either going to blow up completely and be one of those things that reminds everyone in the NFL a quarterback cannot be 5'9" in the NFL and work out, or it's going to completely transcend the sport and he's going to be the greatest goddamn thing to ever come out at 5'9" at quarterback, and it's going to completely force the NFL to maybe rescout the position a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is a guy, again, that we're not knocking his ability to throw the ball. If you watch a lot of his throws in Oklahoma, if you watch a lot of his throws just in general that he's had, this is a guy who has a big arm. I mean, he has, for a guy who's only 5'9", you think that $180, $190, splitting hairs here, is a guy who you think, maybe he can't really throw the ball. No, he can throw the ball. He can throw the ball deep. He can throw the ball short. He can throw the ball accurate. He's a guy who is a good quarterback prospect. Again, I don't necessarily. I've come off the notion of you can't be 5'9" and be a quarterback because, we've had short quarterbacks before in the league. We've had Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, things like that. We've had them succeed in the league. It's just the weight. That's going to be the key thing. How is he going to hold up to a brutal pounding in the NFL? Like, how's he going to hold up to getting sacked? How's he going to get held up to getting attacked at the line and everything and escaping everybody? So, because if he gains more weight, does he lose more speed? So you got to factor in what's his ideal playing weight compared to everything. So, and this is a guy I think that probably also needs. I don't think he can start right away. I don't think he should be the starter right away. I think this is a guy who needs to be on the bench for at least a year. That way he gets comfortable with the system and gets comfortable with getting that ideal playing weight and everything like that. Because for all intents and purposes, he had been preparing to be in Major League Baseball. He played football as a hobby, and now it's becoming a job, and he needs to figure out everything in terms of that. So there was also a rumor out there that the Oakland Athletics have not stopped their pursuit of him, and that they could still make an offer to him and say, hey, come on, we made you number 8 overall, and we want you on this team. Like, let's go, sign this contract. So, any chances, or is this like a done? Is this a done deal, or do you think he's still? There's whispers out there that he's still trying to get that big contract, get that big money deal out of Oakland.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's kind of made up his mind, and I think if not, like, something like needs to be said like ASAP, because the combine's coming up, and then you got the draft after, and I mean, but if the Athletics want to play a villain here, what if they throw like a huge contract this way and be like, are you sure you want to play football? Like, don't. Like, imagine this, and you're not going to have to take all these big hits. Like, it's a lot to think about. But I mean, he's got to make a decision soon.
I think one of the big reasons why is because baseball has a weird system. For those of you who don't watch baseball or don't understand the intricacies of baseball, Bronson, I will fill you in. So baseball works like this in terms of the free agency system. When you get drafted, let's say you're 18 years old, right? You'll spend 2 or 3 years in the minors if you're really good. If you're a high draft pick and you're really good, everything goes perfect. You get to the major leagues at 21 years old. They have this thing called arbitration. You're not able to get arbitration until you spend 6 years on a major league roster, and then if you spend 6 years on a major league roster, 3 of those years you're making minimum salary, and then 3 of those years are then arbitration before you can finally reach free agency. So now you're looking at, if you're 18 years old, then 21, now you're looking at 27, 28 at the earliest. you can reach free agency. Whereas Kyler Murray's already 21, maybe 22 years old. You know, there's a guy who would reach free agency, even if he were to start in the major leagues right now, would make it at 28. But if he were to spend a year or two in the minors and everything were to go perfect, he wouldn't reach free agency until he was 30, 31 years old. And we're seeing guys like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, guys who are 26, 27 years old, you know, top 10 players in the game, not be able to be signed to free agent contracts, which is ridiculous. And that's another day for another podcast, for another whatever. But I think that's what's factoring into Kyler Murray's head as well. I can do this. I can play quarterback, and my earning potential is a lot higher. So that's what my 2 cents are in terms of everything in that.
All right, enough baseball. I'll fall asleep.
Yeah. So hold on one second here. All right, so that was it. So that's it with Kyler Murray. We're gonna see what happens during the combine, which is, like I said, less than a month away. It's gonna be exciting. So, the second thing that came out in terms of everything, really bad news, and I feel bad for him, is Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle for Mississippi State, had suffered a torn ACL this past weekend after going through some drills to get ready for the combine and get ready for the draft. This is a guy who a lot of people did knock the talent, but he wasn't invited to the combine. And I should correct myself on that. He was not invited to the combine, so he was not getting prepared for the combine. He was getting prepared for pro days and stuff like that. But this is a guy who was not invited to the combine because of a previous battery charge he had against a female when he was a freshman in college. The details of those, from what I've heard, was that he was witnessing one of his family members, like a sister or something, getting beat up by another female, and he stepped in and, you know, and handled business. So, yes, you should never punch a girl. Yes, you should never punch a woman. But he had an instance where he, you know, had to step in, essentially, and do that. But this is a guy we had going 13th overall to the Miami Dolphins. Bronson, I'll lead with you. Do you think he drops out of the first round now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he'll be like your atypical 4th, 5th, 6th round draft pick now, depending on where the team values him, that takes him. So,
well, yeah. I mean, it's tough to say. I think. It's going to be tough because it sucks because it's a torn ACL. Now it's not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean he will be out for the entire year. It suffered early enough, you know, we're in early February to the point where we just saw Hunter Henry tear his ACL in July and make it back to play one playoff game in January. Now his effectiveness was decreased and everything like that, but he can come back towards the end of the season, the last 6 games, if he's on like a playoff team, for example, and can make an impact. John, I'll lead off with you as well. Do you think he's going to be a first round draft pick when it's all said and done, or do you think he'll suffer because of it?
Oh yeah, I definitely don't see him becoming a first round pick. I mean, I don't think the team would have to like really be in love with him or be really desperate to want to do that. I mean, yeah, he could come back at the end of the year if he lands with a team that makes it that late in the playoffs, potentially. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to take the risk on that. I mean, and not everyone comes back from a torn ACL and still produces like how they did before. I mean, he is young, but I mean, it's a pretty major injury. You know, I do agree with Bronson too. I mean, I think he'll go very late in the draft. You know, maybe like 5th or 6th round, but I mean, it's a torn ACL. It's a really big risk if someone drafts him high. And when he does get drafted, I think he should definitely just worry about the following season. I don't think I would worry about, you know, coming back in the same season. A young prospect like him, I would want 100% ready to go.
Yeah, just looking at it too, and I'm looking at potential selections and everything like that. I mean, he could go. The Indianapolis Colts, for example, have 2 second-round draft picks if they value him high enough. Because this is a top 15 talent in this draft. So it's just the question marks of the knee now, and the question marks of his off the field stuff. We'll definitely question some things, and when it's all said and done, but. Kansas City technically has they have 2 first-round draft picks. They have 2 second-round draft picks. I could see him going there and reshoring, my words are not coming out. Sorry guys, I just woke up a couple hours ago. Yay! Midnight shift. There's a guy who, or these are teams who have multiple draft picks in the second round that could take a chance on him because, first-round talent, should be drafted pretty high up, even with all the knees and everything like that. Philadelphia could use him, reshore that, defensive line. Houston, maybe. I could see it, but no. New England, I could see it. Yeah, so I don't know necessarily 4th, but I think 2nd and 3rd is where he's going to end up landing. Team's going to take a chance on him, I strongly believe. Even if it's for a mulligan year, they're going to take a chance on him. Especially teams, like I said, with multiple second-round draft picks that can be like, okay, we can take this guy, top 15 pick, and let him rehab for the year. And it's just basically, it's a free player in their eyes. So, yeah, we move on from that story. The next draft story that we have, surprising draft story in some sense. The Lions have apparently just said that they're willing to draft a quarterback if it's the best player available. Per Bob Quinn, he said, we'll consider any position in the draft at any point in time, whether it's the 8th overall pick or we have multiple picks later in the draft. We're in a position now with the 8th overall pick that the whole draft board is really wide open to us. We're not going to really eliminate any prospects. Matthew Stafford just turned 31, signed a $135 million contract, but he's probably had his worst season this past year. Bronson, I'll start with you because you're our NFC North expert. What do you make of this?
Smokescreen. Move on. Yeah, it's really all it is. It's. I've already started to see a few of them, and this is definitely one of them. I really, unless like something just fell into their lap where it kind of became like a no-brainer, but like unless there's like an article tomorrow morning about how Matthew Stafford and Patricia fucking despise each other, I don't see them moving on from Stafford. When teams like Phillip Rivers still haven't drafted their backup.
Yeah. I agree. I think I could see them because we've talked about this previously. I think in a previous that the Lions, they could always draft a quarterback, but I mean they have to keep Stafford on the roster at least 1 year because if they were to trade him or cut him, they're taking on basically $50 million in dead money and having a negative $20 million in cap savings. So they're not doing that, but next year. It's $20 million in dead money, but they save $11.5 million. And in 2021, you're looking at decidedly different everything. $10 million dead money to $20 million savings. So I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I don't think it happens. John, you agree, disagree?
I don't think this is the year to do it. I mean, I don't know. What if this is just, them trying to be like, hey, Stafford, wake up. I mean, it's one bad year. I mean, I think considering what he's having to do without Calvin Johnson the last couple seasons now, I mean, it's hard. I mean, he lost Golden Tate too this year. And I mean, he had one off year, but I mean, all these other years, I mean, he's putting up 4,000 plus yards, a lot of touchdowns, and some seasons he does throw more picks. But I mean, considering what he's had to do in Detroit, I mean, I don't think it's the right year for it. I mean, if he suffers again next season I could see it. And then, like we've said many times, next year's draft class for quarterbacks is way better. So, I don't know. I can't really see them doing that. I mean, maybe late in the draft to be like, oh, this is your backup. But, if we're going to throw this guy in there. But I don't know. I think this isn't the right time to do it. Maybe next season if he struggles again.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think, Bronson, you nailed it on the head. This is just a big smokescreen. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the hey, if your guy is available here, trade with us so that way we don't take him kind of spot. I think the Detroit Lions are in that weird position where they're not high enough to draft a superstar player, but they're not low enough to draft a guy of great value. So I think they're targeting guys who are a little bit lower that they want to trade back. And both Bob Quinn, who's the Detroit GM, and Matt Patricia come back from the Patriots' entire system, which the Patriots predicate on trading back and gaining picks. So I agree. I think this is a smokescreen. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, what if this is a chess move too, along with the smokescreen, and for some reason Haskins and Murray are available at their pick, and they've come out and said this. Like, what if a team's like, whoa, hold on, like we want Haskins, like we'll trade you, and it could be a chess move,
Yeah, it could be. They could be doing that for teams like Miami, like even Denver, Miami, even Washington. That would be like, okay, fuck it, give it. I'll trade 2 first-round picks. Like I need to get my guy. I need to get my guy, whatever the case may be. So, I think this is a good smokescreen by the Detroit Lions, but a smokescreen nonetheless. So, and that's it when it comes to draft news. We are done with draft news. Now we go on to the final 2 news stories of the day. We have the first one, which is the short-lived reign in Houston Texans history, which is Demaryius Thomas. He is gone from Houston. He has been released by the Houston Texans for a failed physical designation. This guy who got traded for the fourth round pick that's going now to Baltimore, and the 7th rounder as well. Ultimately played 7 games in Houston for 23 receptions, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, but tore his Achilles. Again, 31 years old. He's coming off a torn Achilles. Guys, do you think he has any shot coming back, or do you think he's donezo?
I think he'll come back. He's definitely not going to be looking at big money, that's for sure. But I mean, it's a torn Achilles. So he's gonna have to be careful coming back from that, being a wide receiver especially. But I mean, it's Demaryius Thomas. I mean, dude's been really great his entire career. I mean, a few teams are gonna want to take a look at him, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens at least try to look at him if the money's right.
Bronson?
Yeah, he's gonna be a Baltimore Raven.
He's gonna be exactly. It's gonna be that early 30-year-old veteran receiver. There's always one every year, at least.
Yeah, and I like this move for the Texans because they tried to make a move because they had lost. Who'd they lose in terms of wide receivers last year? Hold on, I'm just trying to look at their rosters. Fucking over the cap sometimes sucks, but they lost. I remember they lost a wide receiver last year to an injury, and that's why they made the move for Demaryius Thomas. Now, obviously, he had an injury, and then
Fuller.
Will Fuller, thank you. I saw that name, and it just dawned on me. Yeah, Will Fuller, they lost, so they're gonna get him back. I like this move for the Texans though because now this frees up more cap space because they're in the position where they have to sign some guys. They have to sign Kareem Jackson to a deal. They have to sign Jadeveon Clowney, at least tag him, and Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. They have to get him under contract. So Not cheap guys that they have to keep.
And they need to probably grab an offensive lineman or two in free agency.
Exactly. So they needed all that money in this grand scheme of things. Again, I think this was a move that they thought was going to help them for last year. I don't think he was going to stay on the team unless he had some monster type numbers. But yeah, this is a good move by the Texans, and yeah, Demaryius Thomas. It just depends on how well his Achilles holds up, because again, wrong side of 30 years old with a torn Achilles on a guy who's already had some question marks saying, oh, he doesn't have the same speed, he doesn't have the same whatever, everything like that. So I think a team takes a 1 year flyer on him, but it's going to be nothing. It's going to be for the veteran minimum, I think. I don't think any team's going to shell out more than, the veteran minimum, which is about, I think $1 million or so. But we'll see. Because we spent all last season waiting for Dez to pop up, and Dez, finally popped up about halfway through the season and then tore his Achilles. So those are two big names out there that are going to be free agents that are coming off of pretty big, significant injuries. So, and the final bit of news we're going to talk about today, we talked about in the text messages between all three of us, and that is the news that Kareem Hunt has signed with the Cleveland Browns, which is a team that nobody really expected in the grand scheme of things, because we thought they were set running back with Nick Chubb having a breakout year and Duke Johnson signing his big extension. But John Dorsey, who is now the Cleveland's general manager, drafted Kareem Hunt in his final draft in 2017, which is where he broke out. John Dorsey has known him since he was a freshman in high school, and realistically he's come out and said, I feel like this is a guy who can help our team, and I feel like this is a guy who I enjoy, and I enjoy having around, and I can protect him. Kareem Hunt, the reason he's even a free agent is because of that video we had come out where he kicked a female, which
In Cleveland,
right? But allegedly, I don't know the whole specifics, and I watched it. I don't know what your guys' thoughts were of it. When I watched it back, they had this big, huge, massive fight going on, and and then the female got in his face, slapped him a couple times, and then that's what led to everything about him pushing her down and then kicking her. So I don't condone violence against women at all, in any sense of the form. Jeffrey, it's different in the case of Jeffrey Simmons in a sense, because at least he was trying to protect family. Again, you shouldn't lay hands on a woman, but in that instance, if he was trying to protect family, I feel that's better in the light of everything. This one, I don't know. How did you guys feel about it? Because we never really talked about all that stuff.
I mean, if coming from me, I mean, I know it's not, exactly the same as the whole Ray Rice thing, but in the end, I mean, he shoved and kicked a woman, and Ray Rice, he punched his I'm not sure if they're still together, but his now wife.
Yeah,
and
they're still together.
Yeah, and Ray Rice has never even come close. He came a little close to signing with a team a few seasons ago, but I mean he's his career was done after that. And I know Kareem Hunt, from a business aspect, he's younger than what Ray Rice was. And from a business move, I guess it looks good in that sense, but I think it also looks bad. I mean, it just, I'm so against it to the point where I hope the NFL really suspends the hell out of Kareem Hunt. But I mean, I know they're not. He'll probably get like 8, 10, 12 games, maybe max. But I mean, it's sad. I mean, I think it's sending the wrong message that, like, hey, you can go out here and, beat on women, and we have video proof of it, and you can still get paid millions of dollars. Like, it just blows my mind. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Bronson?
Yeah, I'm in a pretty much mirror a lot of what John was saying. Yeah, I strongly believe that your career should be fucking done. But it's also hard to, like, the football fan in me, it's kind of like hard to like divide the two. Like the football fan in me is like, God damn, like what could he do on another team that would like be crazy?
Yeah.
And then the other half of me is like, burn him at the stake.
Yeah.
Good riddance.
It's why I have a tough time rooting for like Tyreek Hill, for example, who, you know, he's now engaged to her, but before he was even in the NFL, he beat up his pregnant girlfriend and kicked her allegedly, and everything like that. And now there's a guy who's going to get millions of dollars in an extension. So it's tough for me to root for a guy like that, because you see the talent, you see the explosive ability and the likability in the sense of he plays the game to have fun, but then you just remember, holy shit, this guy beat a woman. Like, and not only just beat a woman, he beat a pregnant woman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, granted, I'm not like defending anyone here, but like we don't always know the entire story, and in some instances we do see a video, and he never truly goes what on. Like in Kareem's instance, yeah, we saw you on footage. You definitely were instigated, but you let it get to a point where you put hands on someone, and that's not okay. And then Ray Rice's thing was just, oof, that was a really hard one to watch. But it's just really hard to say. I mean, and also like from a judging standpoint, I mean, people make mistakes all the time, and in the NFL's instance, right now it's currently men beating women, and that's like the big thing. You know, I have done some really shitty shit in my life and in my day, stuff I'm not proud of, things, you know, that I will take to the grave with me. And, you know, I learned from them, and now I am who you guys know me to be. So, I mean, it's very possible for anyone to change. So I am a big believer in that. I don't think one decision should dictate a person's life. Like, the things that I did as a teenager shouldn't affect my career now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, I get it. I get both sides of it. I'm absolutely I was a child raised in an abuseful household. So, like, trust me, I hate it with a burning desire. But also at the same time, it's like, it's hard to, like, be like, because you were a 19-year-old drunken fucking roided out idiot who didn't take life seriously, you know, should I crucify you for the rest of your days? But anyway, I don't want to talk about this subject anymore. It makes me uncomfortable. So let's move on.
That's fine.
To the other side of it.
Yeah, to the football side of it. Yeah, I feel you on that. I was also raised in an abusive household as well. That's why Bronson and I get along so well.
Like, for example, I mean, like, with your brother, you know, should the things that he's done up until, you know, the last couple years, should he not be at his job, et cetera, because of those things? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I feel you on that. And, you know, my brother has done a wonderful job of regathering his life and taking control of his life. And he's made a hell of a life for him, and he continues to try to improve upon that life and everything like that. So my brother is a source of inspiration, and I love him for that. And I get it with Kareem Hunt, and that's why I've always said I don't necessarily root for the guys who have domestic violence in their past, just based on the evidence. Like guys like, for example, Greg Hardy, who we saw the afterwards and aftermath of everything. Fuck that guy. That guy does not deserve to be in the NFL anymore. That guy literally deserves to get, like, he didn't even deserve to be signed by the Cowboys. Fuck that shit. But when it comes to Kareem Hunt, when it comes to Tyreek Hill, I won't necessarily root for the player, but I will root for that he will ultimately make the right choices in life, and ultimately he will make up for it in some way, shape, or form. I am a strong believer in that. That's why I've said to you guys previously about Michael Vick, for example. Michael Vick was a guy who did one of the most heinous things you could do, which was have a dogfighting ring. And if you're an animal lover, that's one of the worst things you could ever happen and hear about is dogfighting, because they treat the dogs poorly. If the dog is injured, they say fuck you. It's disgusting. And he did that. He had that. But when you hear, he served time in jail. When you hear about how his upbringing was, and you hear that, okay, I'm going to get my life together, and you hear that he's making strides to continuously get better in life and continuously try to make up for the past mistakes in his life, and you hear him donate money to the SPCA, and you hear him advocate against it, you hear him, talk about, I did not know my actions were wrong, now I see it, I'm going to do everything in my power to make up for it. That's what leads me to be happy with everything, with that, and be content with it all. Again, not condoning the actions. Never ever will I forgive him for having a dogfighting thing. But I appreciate and support the effort of always trying to improve and always trying to be an advocate against it, and always trying to make up for past mistakes. So if Kareem Hunt can do that in terms of everything, then I'm okay with it. Again, I will never be okay with him hitting a woman. I will never be okay with domestic violence. But if he can somehow, like I said, if he turns his career around again and shows the same explosive player, gets a big paycheck, then he needs to do more, and he needs to advocate for therapy, for example, for counseling, for domestic rights and shelters, homeless shelters for women and women's shelters in general. Then it's okay, in the sense of he's trying to right the wrongs, and we can appreciate that. So we don't have to forgive him, we can appreciate it though. On the flip side, now that we've got that off that soapbox and everything, on the flip side, the football side of Kareem Hunt, guy was the 2017 rushing leader, brings a lot in terms of the passing abilities, brings a lot in terms of the running abilities. Guy, depending on the suspension, we've heard 8 games, we've heard 6 games, we've heard 12 games. We don't know how many games he's going to get exactly, but if Cleveland's in a playoff position, the guy comes in, dominate. And play really well. I think he plays really well to the strengths of Nick Chubb. Because in my eyes, I see Nick Chubb as more of a downhill runner, guy who's going to go in between the guards and center and run you over. Whereas Kareem Hunt is more of an explosive guy. He's going to be your guy who you do tosses to, who you do outside zone running, and definitely third game passing ability. He exceeds both Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson. I think this spells the end of Duke Johnson's career in the Browns. John, do you agree?
I could see it. I mean, I was actually just reading an article that I think the Browns may not even have to pay him like $1 million a season too. So, I mean, they're really not losing too much out of the deal there. But if you got to pick 2 out of the 3, I mean, you obviously got to go with Hunt and Chubb. Duke Johnson will most likely be the odd one out, and I mean, he'll get picked up somewhere pretty quick. I mean, he's still pretty young. If he wants to come over to Baltimore, I mean, I'd like him. But yeah, you hit it around the head. I mean, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he does it all. And it is a perfect 1-2 punch, and we know those work a lot in the NFL. I mean, a lot of the top teams that made it far in the playoffs this year had a great 1-2 punch. I mean, like with Ingram and Kamara. I mean, that's a perfect example right there, and there's many others too. But I'm sure Hunt won't skip a beat when he does come back late in the season, and if there is a playoff push, I mean, you have a really healthy back. who's going to be hungry. So it's going to be scary in that sense.
Yeah, and this is all about getting the pieces and getting all the weapons for Baker Mayfield to succeed. You know, he has Jarvis Landry, obviously, Rashard Higgins. They're trying to work on an extension for, which is nice to have. But again, one of the inadequacies last year was the ability to not throw out of the backfield and give him check down options. Nick Chubb has adequate hands, but I wouldn't rely on him. I would say he has the same hands as, and you know, I'm not comparing that they're the same runner or whatever the case may be, but in terms of hands, I think he's Adrian Peterson-esque, where he's got some hands, but don't rely on him to be your Le'Veon Bell, for example. You know, a guy who can always catch the ball and dominate out of the backfield. Don't expect him to do that. Whereas Kareem Hunt is that elite pass catcher. He can come out of the backfield and get you yards. He can line up in the slot, be your slot wide receiver. He can do all that and more. So, Bronson, you had some strong words in our text messages. Obviously, do you love the pickup in Cleveland, right?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal pickup, and like you said, John, Kareem Hunt can do it all. So there's absolutely no sense as to why they need to keep Nick Chubb on that team anymore. If you go out and you make this move and you put your organization through the PR ringer, you get all your fans, a majority, I shouldn't say all your fans, but a strong majority outside of some drunk fucking rednecks in Cleveland, you're going to have a majority of your fans pissed off at you. The number of times you go on Twitter and Google search Kareem Hunt, it's pretty fucking negative right now. Everything's pretty fucking negative. All right, the amount of articles I had to read as a Bears fan with like how the Bears need to avoid this freaking nightmare. Don't do this, don't do that. Granted, Cleveland isn't Chicago. The media circus isn't there. But guess what? Cleveland Browns are going to start to get a fuck ton more media now with how they're performing as of late. And so you don't do this if you're not trying to make Kareem Hunt your franchise running back. You just don't, okay? There's no – like you had a surefire runner and a surefire pass-catching back last year, okay? There was no need to make the change. And, yes, I see your point of let's get Baker more weapons. You're not going to be running the ball more. Yeah, I mean, the targets, let's say Kareem were to catch 40 passes. I mean, there's not much more volume outside of that for the rest of the running backs. So that's why it makes zero sense to keep the one guy. You're not going to pull Kareem Hunt out of the game if and when he's playing to put in Nick Chubb. You're just not going to do it. You saw what it did to the fucking Rams. It just throws the team off. And then all of a sudden the star is just like, I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm hurt, but maybe. And this fat guy can run instead. I mean, it just doesn't work. So you have, like, granted, you had a very good team, but you still need a lot of pieces. So why wouldn't you take, I don't know, the PR nightmare, hope it turns out, you know, let's say he gets suspended 6 games. I don't know where that falls in terms of where the trade deadline is, right? But let's say, you know what, Max, for shits and gigs, what week is the trade deadline? Can you just hit me with that little fact?
It's always after week 8. It's the Tuesday after week 8.
Okay, so let's say the Tuesday after week 8. All right. So let's say he's suspended right in the middle, and we say 8 games, right? Mm-hmm. 8 games. All right. Fuck it. He's suspended 8 games. He'll get half a season's worth of like pregame roster dress up bonuses or whatever, so it'll probably come out to like $500,000, which is just a little bit outside of like practice squad minimum, I think. And then you have him on the team, right? And he's behaved up until that point. We're talking 2.5, you know, let's say from here up until those 8 weeks of suspension are served. So however many months that translates to, he's kept his nose clean. He's been in anger management the entire time. He has not shown one ounce of regression, okay? He is ready to come. He's healthy. He's been practicing every week, yada, yada, yada. Like, let's say the week 8's up, week 8 ends, he's eligible to play. You got 3 fucking days to make a move. There is no reason at all why you don't trade Chubb after what he did as a rookie, a guy just as old as Kareem Hunt, if not a year younger. There's no reason why you can't trade him now and get a second-round pick out of it, or even a third, and then bring in someone. Or, there's the other side of it. Maybe they're bringing in Hunt to only trade him, and that's why his contract is so appealing right now. It's like, hey, look, we got him under contract this much with a restricted free agent tender the year after. Who wants to trade us for Kareem Hunt? Like, yep. I mean, you literally – there's zero risk at that point. Let the Browns take the brunt of the PR bullshit. By the time everyone's done talking about it, maybe there's a team out there like, all right, like now everyone's like cooled down. Maybe they trade Hunt and they just stick to their original plan. That team needs another receiver. I know Jarvis is great, but he can't be the number one. They need a outside receiver to complement him. So there's no reason why like a team can't be like, hey, we'll give you this guy or we'll give you this pick, or, they need another guard and like another tackle over there. There's no reason why a team can't offer an offensive lineman, There's just a lot of moves to be had out there for either one of the two players. And I think – and the Browns are a trade fucking happy team as of late. The last 2 years I feel like they have been like doing some crazy shit. I mean, they went out and got Jarvis Landry. Do you guys remember that? Like that was friggin' nuts. I mean, like they're not the same team anymore. So like I could almost see this being like some crazy like tactical ploy. Like, hey, we'll take some nightmares. We'll take some articles written about us. We don't care. Trade us for him or trade us for Chubb and like just see what plays out up until the season or right up until Kareem is, coming back from suspension, or they keep Hunt the entire goddamn time and Chubb comes out and like, don't fucking replace him with me. Like I'm out here rushing for 1,000 yards and it's only week 9, like why would you bring this guy in to only diminish what I'm doing right now? So then what do? They just trade Hunt to a team that's ready to take him after he just served all that freaking bullshit time. They have a lot of wiggle room here. But like I think it's either going to be pre-trade deadline or there's some weird like pre-draft trade stuff trying to go on here.
I think I like the idea though of the Kareem Hunt trade because you're right. He signed a 1-year contract. However, they hold his restricted free agent rights. So right. If he, depending on the suspension, Bronson, you threw out the possibility because what I've heard is they're thinking 12 games for Kareem Hunt, just right, not just saying, based on. I mean,
right, like but you throw in an appeal in there that 12 can turn from 10 to 8 or fucking 9.
You're right.
I feel
exactly.
Like
that was the point I was going to bring up. You mentioned that point, and that could easily happen as well. I think again they complement each other perfectly well with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I honestly think they complement each other well. And like what John said, this could be their Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, guys who specialize in one thing and specialize in another thing. And right. Mark Ingram. Just so I can make the point real quick is Mark Ingram, for example, averaged 4.7 yards a carry. He only played in 12 games because he had the 4-game suspension, started 6, but still, over an entire season average, if he were to start all the games and everything like that, he's a 1,000-yard rusher right there. Nick Chubb, I showed you break down everything. If he would have started every game on the pace he was having, he would have been the second leading rusher, even above Saquon Barkley in Cleveland. Then compared to what he ended up with in terms of stats. But this works to the advantage because you look at Alvin Kamara, for example, 81 receptions, 709 yards, and, 4 touchdowns. You're thinking, wow, that's actually pretty good stats. Kareem Hunt, before he got suspended, again, different offense, different quarterback, different system. Before he got suspended, though, he had 26 receptions for 378 yards for 14.5 yards per reception and 7 touchdowns. That right there, to me, indicates, like I said, they're going to keep both these guys, and they're going to have, and it does not hurt to have competition. That keeps guys hungry. So that keeps guys like Nick Chubb, for example, hungry. He's got to go, well, fuck, they're bringing in this other alpha running back. I got to maintain my position. Let me continue being Nick Chubb and doing what I need to do. And I think this is a smart move on the football side of things for the Cleveland Browns, because you look at Nick Chubb, for example, had 20 receptions for 149 yards and 7.5 yards per reception. I mean, he did not do that well in terms of receiving. He's not a good receiver. End of story. But Kareem Hunt is.
Right.
And that
okay,
excites
I
me.
understand that. And Kareem Hunt is the type of player that can do it all, and there's no one necessary. Like, you don't need another player behind Kareem Hunt. Just like you don't really need one behind Todd Gurley. Just like you didn't need one behind Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson. You brought up the Kamara Ingram comparison, but the Kamara Ingram comparison only works because, well, it's Sean Payton, and that dude's creative as shit. No one else in the NFL can do that. Look at my Chicago Bears, man. The only reason why Jordan Howard isn't doing the things that he's doing is because he was constantly getting pulled off the damn field every 2 plays for Tariq. And it made him look worse because his flow was off. He wasn't getting 25 to 30 carries a game anymore. And it made him look like a lesser running back. It didn't work anymore. And I tell you right now, if you start pulling Nick Chubb off the field to put on superstar Kareem Hunt, no one's talking about Nick Chubb, man. The moment Kareem Hunt comes on the field, they're going to be like, Kareem Hunt. Oh, shit. Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt. Look at him in that orange jersey with that 27, getting beautiful handoffs from Baker Mayfield. And then you got Baker Mayfield. So you got to throw in the whole thing. You're not going to be handing off the ball 45 fucking times to these 2 running backs when you have the first overall pick in the draft the year prior, and you need to give him weapons down the goddamn field versus worrying about the backfield. You see what I'm saying? Like you keep one and you move on from the other and get some draft capital. And that's what the Browns have done the last several, couple years, ever since they got Schneider in there. They have been about they've been about draft capital the last 5 years. Let's be honest. But John Snyder, he does things a little bit more aggressive. But there's no Duke Johnson's contract is not ridiculous. He is not old. He's still young. He's got his prime years right here. They start now. And he is one of the best catching running backs in my hands, probably top 3 with hands in the NFL. The dude's insane. I mean,
But
he had
I
that
think-
one monster year 2 years ago.
But I think the issue is that John Dorsey did not, he signed his contract extension, Duke Johnson did, before John Dorsey really got in there, and he's not a John Dorsey guy. And that's the thing. John Dorsey
Right.
has turned over that roster entirely to shape what he wants as a team. And Duke Johnson's still one of those holdovers from the previous regime. So that's where I think, he's like, all right, Duke Johnson, I'm not feeling it anymore. Duke Johnson had a down year, whether because of touches or whether because of usage or whatever the case may be. He had a down year.
He had a down year because they weren't using their running backs as frequently as they were 2 years prior with freaking Hugh. Duke was having a solid year up until Hugh left.
Right.
And then he just dropped off the radar. They traded Hyde, and then they committed to Chubb.
Yeah.
It's that's why it doesn't make sense to bring in 2 franchise running backs.
Well, would it
They're
make
not
more
using their running backs frequently enough.
Would it make more sense to trade Duke for, to a team like, let's say, Philadelphia? Philadelphia, they could trade a 4th round pick for Duke Johnson, and there you go. That solves Philadelphia's need for a running back right there. Guy who can run between the tackles and who can catch passes. Helps Philadelphia out.
Duke really can't run between the tackles. Not that well. He's
Okay.
like a third and long situational pass catching back. That's what he does. I mean, the Browns win against the Ravens. If they threw the same fucking pass they did to them on their final drive, they win the goddamn game. But what do I know? Point is, Duke is not bad. All right, he's serviceable on the team and he has a decent contract. There's no reason. That's like having David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell on the same fucking team.
Okay, but if ultimately both of those players help you win games, would you rather have both of those players and figure out a way?
Okay.
You know,
If you run the Patriots style of offense where you just bring in star after star and you just get them all in on this freaking idea, it's the one team in the NFL that does that. I mean, if everyone's okay with having 600 yards and like 400 yards receiving, that's fine. But you're not gonna get two guys to like have like, you know, an absurd amount of combined yards between the two. Like one's going to be a change of pace and then that's it. Okay. It's going to be one starting, getting 20 snaps, and then the other one's going to come in and give him relief, you know? And like I said, like Kareem Hunt's not a wide receiver. He's great out of the backfield catching. That's great. But he's not like Le'Veon. Like Le'Veon's big enough, fast enough to like line up in the flex. Like he's like, you know, the modern day Matt Forte. Kareem isn't like that. I mean, in terms of builds, don't get me wrong, he's done some insane things with his hurdling and et cetera, but like, I just don't see it. Like, one of those two has to be gone. Granted, yes, John Schneider did bring in Chubb, but he also brought in freaking Kareem Hunt.
John Dorsey.
John Dorsey, thank you. He brought in Kareem Hunt, who led the league in rushing. I mean, he is not going to forget that. He's not going to do it. And I think he likes that idea, and I will not disagree with him at all that Kareem Hunt, in my opinion, is top 3 best running backs in the NFL right now. Like, I honestly would put him, like, in my opinion, probably number 1 in the NFL. Based on what I've seen and from what I've done, I'd put him 1, and then like Gurley and Melvin Gordon at 2 and 3.
Oof. Really?
Yes. Those are my 3 favorite running backs in the NFL right now. I'd put Le'Veon up there, but the only reason why I'm not putting Le'Veon up there is because, I mean, yeah, it's his age and his injury concerns, and he's a shithead.
So you're putting, and just so I'm clear on this, no Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, God damn it! I didn't even think of Zeke, but
right. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was like, shit. Like, okay, that's why.
But I would still take those 3 running backs before Zeke. Yes.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah, I love Melvin Gordon. I don't think he gets near enough respect. Zeke gets plenty of love.
Would you say this? Would you say this about Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott, that they can be 3A and 3B? Like they're basically tied for 3rd, but like you can swap between the two.
Yeah, and then I'd put Le'Veon. I'd put like Le'Veon and David Johnson tied.
Yeah,
and
that's basically.
I single-handedly believe like Kareem Hunt's the best running back in the NFL right now. If he had stayed in that offense the entire season, like what he got cut like midway into the year.
He got cut after week 11, or week 12, whatever the case may be. He started 11 games, so
yeah. And then I can't even imagine what that team would have done or what he would have done. He would have had career numbers, career touchdowns, probably career catches. I mean, what he was doing on film this year, like I thought he was going to regress with Patrick Mahomes in there.
Yeah.
But fuck, I was wrong about that entire offense and like how it turned out. But yeah, I think if healthy, if not being a shithead hitting women, I strongly believe that he's probably the best running back in the NFL. In my opinion. That's my opinion.
Right.
But like, and like, if I'm Dorsey, I'm not freaking passing that up. Like, and I think he knows that, and I don't think and then he convinced Kareem to take a deal that literally could cost him $0 for 2 years. Like it's insane.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's the relationship that John Dorsey built, and that's why I like John Dorsey, is because this guy he's a hell of a talent evaluator, and he's always said, I will put talent above character, but he said, I've known Kareem Hunt, and this is my way of essentially like protecting him. And I like that. I like the fact that he wants to, at least, if he can't keep him for more than 2 years, or if he can't keep him past a year, because, another team wants to trade him draft capital and he goes elsewhere, at the very least he can get him, with the team, get him back in the football mentality, and at least try to protect him. It has worked in the past for some guys. It hasn't worked in the past for some guys, but, hopefully it can work when it's all said and done. John, you've been very quiet in this whole discussion, even on text message. You son of a bitch. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, hold on, excuse me. I'm trying to freaking clear my throat. Excuse me. Anywho.
Sexy.
Oh, yeah. I love the winter time. Anyways. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, he is definitely top 2 or 3 easily. I definitely agree there. If he could stay out of trouble.
23. What team gets that opportunity?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this just doesn't happen. I mean, and like I said earlier, they're only going to pay him like $1 million tops. I mean, it's just a steal. I mean, they could do whatever they want with him. I think if he stays out of trouble, I think I would want to stay with him. I mean, for what he's already proven that he can do. I mean, I do kind of see both sides between with what Max is saying and what you were saying, Bronson. I mean, it's got to be Chubb or Hunt.
Here's that. Real quick, John, I'm going to add this in there because you just said that. I think worst case scenario that the Browns are trying to do is they're going to play out this year, keep both of them all season, and they hope when Kareem does get the opportunity to play this season, whether it's after 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 fucking games, that he comes into the NFL and fucking lights it up. And that the NFL ends discussing it about him, and then they hit him with that fucking restricted tender, and then they want to see what crazy-ass offers come in. That's the only thing I can see outside of something happening this season.
Yeah, true. And I would like to think someone, especially his age now, is like, okay, well, I need to stay clean. I'm only, like you said, 23 years old. I mean, if he could stay clean, I mean, this guy, I mean, he still has a lot of playing time in his career, and and like I said before, I mean, he does it all. I mean, you can rarely find running backs nowadays that can not only run the ball effectively, but are also a passing threat too. And they could really change the game for no matter who quarterback. And he has, Baker Mayfield back there. I mean, Flacco was made to look amazing during the Ray Rice years. I mean, Rice did it all too. And I mean, I miss those days because, I mean, it just makes the offense so much different. I mean, he's a rarity at the running back position. He's already won the rushing title, like you said, in 2017, and there's no reason why he can't do that at least a few more times. I mean, it's a good move by them. I hate to say it, and like I said on some of the last podcasts, the Browns are getting scarier and scarier, and they're only going to get better if they don't make any silly moves.
I don't know what much more we can add, but yeah, this is what we talked about, man. This is a great move all around in terms of football moves by the Browns, and hopefully it works out for them. John's not looking forward to them to take the next step, but Bronson
it's about time for them. I mean, it's been a long time coming for their entire franchise, honestly.
John, today at work, one of my coworkers who I constantly talk football with and tell him he's a fucking twat and a moron and yada yada yada. And he, we love each other. And tomorrow's actually his last day at my job. Tim, I love you. If you listen. But today, I think it was today or either yesterday, he asked me, hey, Bronson, so, like, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you think our division plays out next year? Give me your first, second, and third place, or first, second, third, and fourth place in the AFC North. So, John, I guess I'll let you answer that question, and then I will tell you what I say.
Yeah, I already know. You're
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. Say what you think, and then we'll talk about.
Wait, what? My opinion, or
yeah. Give me your first, second.
All right.
Your decision.
My prediction is I've said it even after we beat them week 17, which we should have lost that game again. But I think it's going to go Browns first. And, I'll be bold. I'll say Ravens second, Steelers third, Cincinnati fourth. But I know yours is way different.
It's not too different. It's going to be – or I let Max go.
It's gonna be tough because I want to say that the Browns take the next step, but I'm still, until they're dethroned officially, I'm gonna go Steelers 1, Browns 2, Ravens 3, and Bengals in a distant fourth.
Yeah, so I went Browns 1, Steelers 2, and I didn't say what the record would be or what, but I did say Ravens, Bengals tied at the same record for 3 and 4. That's what I took. So I didn't really pick a last place. I just put you guys as tied. Because that's how I feel about both teams. But here's what I will say about this, and I don't think a lot of people talk about the Steelers enough. If they do, in fact, if Le'Veon moves on, Antonio moves on, the soapbox fucking finally ends in Pittsburgh, 2 things I'm looking at. Is Big Ben, is his age catching up to him? And number 2, I've never once doubted Juju Smith-Schuster as a receiver, ever in his entire career, while he's opposite of Antonio Brown. I am very, very, very curious to see how he's going to do, if well at all, as the only receiver on that roster. Because you're looking at their roster, if they lose Antonio Brown, their next freaking receiver is like Eli Rogers and James Washington. And then they got that kid from Virginia Tech, I think, returning kicks, that Ryan Switzer guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll pull up the roster in just a second.
And I don't necessarily trust. I don't think Juju Smith is going to play well being a number 1 receiver. I think he's more of a deep threat guy. He kind of reminds me of Mike Wallace, but better. So I don't think he's going to do well as the 1 unless they somehow have another phenomenal wide receiver draft back when they got AB and Emmanuel Sanders. But I don't see that happening. I don't see them happening. I see them maybe slowly transitioning into a run first offense with, Connor and what they got, Stephon Ridley or something over there. Whoever their second string running back is currently.
They had Steven Ridley, but he is an unrestricted free agent right now.
Okay. And then so I can see them transitioning into a James Conner, Jesse James, Vance McDonald, hybrid offense. I could see them kind of catering to Big Ben's age, maybe turn Juju into a red zone option. But he's not going to be anywhere close to what AB was. And that's my concern about the Steelers. And in the Ravens, I have a big asterisk next to because, one, yet again, the Ravens need to fix their running back situation. It's not clear. Like, you have a power back. Okay, I got that. You got your guy inside the 20 who can get between the tackles. You don't have any pass catchers. You don't really have, from the running back position up from the freaking wide receivers. Your tight ends are good. That's great. But you're probably going to end up using them as offensive linemen to help protect Lamar. So it's like tricky. So, and then the Bengals are the fucking Bengals. They could be like 10-6 next year if Andy Dalton plays well and freaking Joe Mixon has an insane year. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, first year without Marvin Lewis too. So who the hell knows what's going on there?
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I put the Bengals and Ravens are question marks for me. I think the Steelers' offense is going to completely be nowhere near what it was, and I think the Browns are going to very easily take over as the offensive team, and I can't wait to see them in that 4-3 defense. I think Myles Garrett is going to be top 5 in sacks this coming season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to have a fucking coming out party.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and really quick before we end this podcast here, did anybody watch any, other than the highlight I sent y'all, did anybody watch any AAF stuff?
I just scroll through Twitter and see plays and just be like, God damn. I remember when football used to be like that.
Yeah, the only thing I kind of was really watching was one of
How
the
bad Christian Hackensberg was.
well, yeah, that, but fucking no, I mean one of the Ravens' favorite preseason players was the quarterback Josh Woodrum. He was a top 10 pick for the good old Stallions, and yeah, he didn't do too well. I mean, I think he was 10-22 for 120 yards, and I was like, But it seems like they're really letting the guys play. I mean, that big hit, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I watched. I had on my phone the Atlanta versus Orlando game. Mostly because obviously Orlando's the local team here, but also I was watching it because my wife's cousin's actually the starting left guard for the Atlanta team. Which is pretty cool there, and definitely the best position for him. I watched a couple when I was watching. He did. Run game. He's a mauler, man. He can fucking. I was watching him. He was pancaking guys onto the ground and making sure he was finishing his blocks. I was like, damn, Brandon, you're Brandon Pertile. I know you don't listen to this, but damn, man, you would look fucking good. Other than that, though, I enjoyed it. The rules are a little weird. Do y'all know any of the rules or no?
No.
So just to tell you what some of the rules are. So they have no kickoffs at all.
Oh yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
So no kickoffs. Every team starts at the 25. Which I was like, it sucks because I want to see kickoffs, but I get it because of player safety. It is what it is. One of the rules I liked was that there are no extra points. You have to go for 2. Which
that's
I liked. I didn't like the rule though that you can only rush five players, and that's a rule that they have there, is that you can only rush a maximum of 5 players.
Huh.
Which I was like, so that eliminates a lot of the what's that?
Even scouting potential. I want to see a guy what a quarterback looks like. If I'm going to bring this guy into my NFL team, I want to see what it looks like when fucking 8 dudes are in his face climbing on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
let me see that pass.
Yeah, so other than that, I watched a couple things. I know we talked about the uniforms previously. Man, I fucking love Birmingham's uniforms. The more I looked at it, and the more I saw players in them, and the more I saw the just classic, clean look of it, I was in love with that. So, but I mean, other than that, it's fun. It's exciting, and guess what, guys? Still football. So,
Yeah.
and they're not competing with the NFL. They've actually basically signed a developmental deal with the NFL to help them out, essentially. So,
Oh yeah, like help scout for him. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So it's good stuff, man, and we're already hearing rumors that the Birmingham Irons quarterback Luis Perez is already getting some love from NFL teams. They're like, okay, let's sign him up, and so I'm excited for it. And we've got more games this weekend. Hopefully, you guys, if you can spare some time, or if you can find it on whatever, watch it. They definitely have YouTube links and stuff that you can find, and I can
is
always
Birmingham. Who's their coach?
It's
Steve Spurrier?
No, that's Orlando. That's Orlando's head coach. No, Birmingham's is, I believe, Tim Lewis. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I literally just had it out too. Whoops.
Birmingham Iron. Their head coach is Tim Lewis, yes, who is we've talked about him briefly before. Defensive coordinator for the Steelers for a few years, for the Giants, and just a couple different positions in the NFL. So, and he was a former player, first round pick back in 1983 for the Green Bay Packers, who was a cornerback. So, he suffered a severe neck injury, suffered in a Monday night game against the Chicago Bears in Week 3 of the 1986 season. So there you go, Bronson. Your Bears ended a guy's career.
Well, I mean, anyone who would get hit by that 86 defense would obviously have their career ended.
So,
because that defense was actually better than the 85 defense. Go figure.
Yep, go figure. But yeah, watch the AAF, guys. It's fun. It was great. It was awesome. I loved every single second of it. Go ahead and do that shit. So. But I think with all that stuff, that about does it for this week's episode of the Pass Interference Podcast. John, Fine People Podcast Land, where can they find you?
You can find me, I guess, fighting with Browns fans on Twitter, and also the same handle on Instagram at NERRRICH. All
right, and Bronson, where can the Fine People Podcast Land find you?
You can find me on the Instagrams at Chefman Bronson, and you can also now find our Pass Interference Podcast at Pass Interference Podcast, and then you can also find me on the Twitter feeds at Bronsonius. I tweet about anime, sports mostly, and random angry thoughts I have.
All right, and the Fine People Podcast Land, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at OGLiquidJesus. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/LiquidJesus1, where I stream Apex Legends because that game has taken over my life officially. So,
same.
Yeah, that game is amazing. So that about does it, though, for this week's podcast. Like I said, follow us on Spotify, iTunes, all the good shit for podcasts. And with that, have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.